Solve the following inequality and graph the solution. So here we have a polynomial inequality, and it's technically a quadratic, but quadratics qualify as polynomials. Linears do as well, but linear inequalities are easier to solve. You can pretty much solve them in the same way that you solve linear equations. But that's not the case with polynomial inequalities. You have to use test values on different intervals. The reason is we're looking for all the values that are less than 0. So what happens is you have two numbers, x plus 10 and x minus 6, whose product is less than 0. And so that can happen if this is less than 0 or if this is less than 0. So you can't just take each of these and set them less than 0 and solve. Because the thing is, you want first the values for which these are less than 0 and these are greater than 0 so that the product is less than 0 overall. And then you want to reverse these because that means the product of these two values would be less than 0. Long story short, what we have to do is change how we go about solving inequalities for quadratics. What we have to do is choose test values within a number line, and those test values are going to be in between the zeros of our polynomial. So the zeros here are, of course, -10 and +6, because we take to each factor, set it to 0, and solve. Now we put those zeros on a number line, and we test which intervals are positive and which intervals are negative by picking test values. So my test values here, something that's less than -10 will work just fine, so I'll pick -11. If I chose 0, that's in the interval from -10 to 6, and 7. I generally just pick the smallest values that work. Now, what's happening on these intervals? Are we positive or negative? That's where we need to go back to the original polynomial. So at the value -11, I have -11 plus 10 times -11 minus 6. So this would be -1 times -17, and a negative times a negative results in a positive value. And it doesn't really matter what the value is, it's just that it's positive. So everything on that interval will be positive. If I chose 0, then what happens is 0 plus 10 is 10. 0 minus 6 is -6. So the result of a positive and a negative is a negative value. Lastly, if I chose 7, then 7 plus 10 is 17, and 7 minus 6 is 1, so the result of these two values gives me a positive answer. So the solution here for all the combinations of values that are less than 0 are all the numbers between -10, but not including -10, to -6 and not including -6, and all of those values in between, because those are the ones that are less than 0. So the solution and interval notation is the set from -10 to 6, non-inclusive.